So my topic I'm going to talk is computational simulations, the next disruptive technology in pharma R&D. What is a disruptive technology? We are in a technologically developing world, and you see, even if you take an example, probably 5 years back, nobody thought like, okay, you have a mobile phone and you can just call a taxi just by clicking an app. So this changed the entire world of even the taxis, right? Nobody thought like, okay, a few years back, probably like any grocery can be delivered to your home, or anything, whatever you want from wherever it is, it's going to be delivered to your home. Look into the way like Amazon, right? And look into the valuation of Amazon, right? And these companies took how many years? Just few years. So there are these disruptive technologies are something like which evolve slowly and probably like taken a big shape in the industry. Okay. So there are so many technologies like coming up, right? Today we are in a digital age, like there are so many technologies coming up in each and every field. But my talk is going to be on the in silico, how the computational simulations or molecular modeling or computer-aided drug design is going to change the pharma drug discovery scenario, where Dr. Rohit and Dr. Oja told, it takes about 15, 20 years and it takes billions of dollars and millions of molecules are being synthesized to identify that one single molecule. Okay. So in a scenario, pandemic scenario like this, okay, if we are struggling to get a medicine, like, okay, to get a drug molecule, if you have to wait for 15 years, nobody would be there, right? But how can this can be speeded up? How is this scenario changing? The reality of change today, how computational simulations. For example, we signed a deal with BMS for $2 billion. Okay, just about 2 months back. And we signed again a deal with few Zia Labs for a few $1 million. So the pharma R&D is turning towards the computational drug design. Like, okay, that is going to give their relief to discover drug molecules much faster. Why drug discovery is tough? Okay, even everybody says rocket science is tough. But like I would say, like still like rocket science is tough, but like India is pioneering in rocket science. But if you ask like, okay, is there any number of molecules coming out from India? Till date, there is not much of a great achievement. The reason is why. To discover any molecule, like your molecule should satisfy multiple parameters. It is not your molecule is very highly potent. The molecule should have a good bioavailability, like should have a selectively targeting its protein, should have a good solubility, should have a good clearance, half-life, permeability, CYP inhibition, hERG blockage, synthesizability, should not be toxic. There are so many parameters. Now your molecule can go and inhibit a particular disease target even in a picomolar concentration. But let us imagine it has a toxicity. The FDA is not going to approve. Or if it has any of these things, like let us take like any of the cancer drugs. They are killing cancer cells, no doubt about it. But at the same time, they are also going and killing other things. They are also creating a lot of side effects and everything. But what happens, it is an end of it, like, okay, it is, okay, the patient has to live for a few more days, right? So that's where like, okay, I'm okay to take the selective, the side effects, but okay, the FDA approves. But making a drug molecule which satisfies all these criteria is a tough challenge, right? That's why it's a tougher science than rocket science. It takes 15 years plus and billions of dollars are being spent. The other reason in drug discovery, if you look into right from 1970s or even 2005, 10, there is more of a serendipity drug discovery. It's like a blind man touching an elephant. Like, okay, he doesn't know like what is the shape of the elephant. Like, okay, blind man touches one part and he says like, okay, this is the way. It's the same way for the drug discovery also. Because the reason is, if you take any molecule in whatever you're targeting, it has a definition. It has to by default go and bind to a particular target protein or a particular target gene or a particular target enzyme, and it has to enhance or inhibit that particular target protein or enzyme. But if you don't know the target protein, if you don't know the target protein structure, and if you're just if you just keep on designing something serendipitically, what happens? It takes billions of years, billions of dollars, it takes so many years, all those things. So if you look into the earlier, like 1970s, 18s, it was all of a combinatorial method. So why the combinatorial method became so famous? Okay, here is a technology which helps you to synthesize millions of compounds. I can go and test it instead of asking chemist, okay, design 111. Then came the two-dimensional QSAR, the three-dimensional QSAR, assuming, okay, these molecules which are inhibiting these molecules, okay, having this kind of properties and other things, okay, I'm designing something new. Can I get some valuable information from these molecules? And can it give me a guidance to the new molecule what I'm synthesizing? It is like assuming the street of Delhi. Okay, you know the Delhi streets, but you're assuming like, okay, you can also predict how the streets of Bombay would be. It can give you some idea, but it is not going to give you a complete information, because when your drug discovery has to satisfy many more parameters. Then came the pharmacophore concept. Okay, these are the key functional features which are binding to the target. Okay, can I find out those features like, okay, which are there in other known big molecules or whatever? That was quite successful, but like again, there are so many parameters you have to match in. And the other challenge in the drug discovery, as I told you, selectivity. For example, if you take kinase proteins, there are 500 kinases in the body, and all the kinases has the same similar PDB structure. Only the binding pocket, like, okay, it differs like little bit of a 5% of a differentiation, when just like even 5% or even 2% of a differentiation. When there is 2% of a differentiation among these 500 different targets, and if you are assigned to identify one target, and your molecule has to go and identify and bind only to that particular target, it is a big challenge. It is like a penguin chick is there, and the penguin is going and hunting and bringing them fish, and it has to identify its chick among the bunch of millions of chicks, right? So that's a way, like that is another challenge in the drug discovery. So it is like unless you understand your target very effectively, you know the story, right? There is a tree, like there are so many birds sitting in, but you have to kill one bird. So if you want to kill one bird, like, okay, when the guru asks Arjuna, like, what do you see? Where everybody says, I see the tree, I see the branch, I see the mango, everything. But he says, I see the neck of the bird, right? And so he says, hit. So he achieves the target. So in the drug discovery also, it is like not only like you understand your gene, you understand your protein, you should also understand your protein thermodynamics. If you look into any protein binding pocket, so the protein, the body is made up of 70% of waters. And if you take a water in the normal glass, like if you look into every water's thermodynamics, every water molecule's the entropy and enthalpy, they all might be similar because there is no affinity for the water to the glass. But whereas every water molecule in the binding pocket has a different entropy, different enthalpy, and they also play a very crucial role in the drug binding, selectivity, affinity, everything, right? It is like, okay, you are trying to design a duplicate key for your lock. Just imagine you don't know the lock itself, and you go to a duplicate key maker and you say, I forgot my key, I lost my key, can you give me a duplicate key? It's difficult for him. He will just give you a bunch of keys. On the other hand, you give a lock. So he can analyze, okay, what is the mechanism of the lock? Where can he like design the lock in a different way? Like, okay, the key in a different way. Understanding the mechanism of the lock only like helps him to design a key much quickly. So the same way in drug discovery, one, you should have a protein structure, understand the thermodynamics of the protein structure, the water molecules in the binding pocket. And like the other challenge here is you are competing with something which the nature has produced. Nature is the ultimate smart thing. Okay, I wonder the nature every day, because you look into the nature, like every day, every flower, every tree, every plant is different. Every human being is different. There are millions of people, but the nature has created one single football size face. Everything is so unique, right? So when the nature has created some molecule to go and bind to a target protein, so the nature is created with so much of an accuracy that molecule has to go and bind only to that particular protein structure. Now you are challenging nature. You are trying to synthesize something better than what the nature has created. Let us imagine you're trying to create an antihistamine. Your molecule should be much more affinity than the histamine, right? Then if you have to design something much more better than histamine, one, you should understand the thermodynamics or whatever is happening in the binding pocket, what are the amino acids in the binding pocket, how this molecule is binding, what are the affinity, what are the different physicochemical properties happening in the binding pocket, and like, okay, which property like, okay, is contributing more for the binding affinity, and like, okay, what you can design better, which functional group you can design better. At the same time, whatever you change, it is not going to affect any of the parameters whatever I mentioned. It should be good in ADME, absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion. It should not be toxic. It should not cross the blood-brain barrier. So many challenges, because like the moment you change one functional group, all the parameters are going to change. That is what is a relationship between a structure, its activity and relationship, right? So that is the biggest challenge. When such a biggest challenge is there, and you have to parameterize so many different parameters, different things, it is not possible like, okay, you go and design a molecule serendipitously just by closing your eye, and like, okay, it is like, okay, you aim to a bird or like whatever it is. So that is a challenge in the drug discovery all these years. And as Dr. Oja told, today we are living in a world where change and innovation is the mantra for today. If you are not changing, you will perish. Look into the examples here, like, okay, HPF, Hindustan Photo Films, who are just making a photo films, and Kodak, who are just making a photo films. Kodak was employing 4 lakh employees. Where is that? It all vanished in one day when the technology came. You look into it, Nokia phone, or BlackBerry, which was the first smartphone, like they all like vanished, right? And today, like we are talking about Apple and Samsung, and I just saw like an ad about 3 days back, like, okay, Samsung has introduced something like a completely foldable phone. Look into the way where the technology is changing, okay? And look into the way, like, okay, about 10-20 years back, Yahoo was one of the biggest e-commerce, the internet giant. In fact, Yahoo was about to buy Google. So Google was such a small. In the 10 years, you see like the valuation of these companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, or Apple, they are worth billions of dollars, right? The way the technology is changing, it is enormous. So what I'm telling you is, when the technological change is so fast, how much as a student, or how much as a teacher, or how much as a human being, we are learning, or we are adapting to these changes. It is minuscule, I can say. We are like, as Dr. Oja told, like, okay, we are probably reading only the book and writing what you capturing the data and writing back the data, scoring some marks, and going and sitting in a company and probably doing a job, taking a day-to-day thing. But like, how far, like, okay, we are thinking something innovative, doing something innovative, trying to learn something innovative, or something out of the syllabus you people are going. It's good, like, okay, universities or like our system is like currently running these faculty development programs, which like, first thing, like the faculty should be empowered, should know like, okay, what is the thing, you should get knowledge and you have to pass it on to your students. So if you look into the technological development, if you see like on the computational development in the last 40 years, where we are in 1976 or up to 2000, and when I was doing my bioinformatics in 1999, it was SGI. It was a small, it was a computer which was so costly, the computing power is nothing. Then came the Pentiums, then came the cluster computing, then came the supercomputing. Today we are in the cloud computing, and next we are talking about quantum computing. Look into the kind of a growth like what the quantum computing is coming in. So this is an enormous amount of growth is happening in the last 40 years. If you look into the world, as I told you, like in the beginning, like if you look into the age of Earth, which is billions of years, and our life in this age is just a pop-up in a computer. What is coming in? It is like one pop-up which pops up for a second. But in this second of a millisecond, look into the kind of a growth what is happening, right? So this is a phenomenal growth coming in. On the other hand, if you look into the life sciences, you take into it 2000, like, okay, the DNA structure was determined only in the last century, and within like a few years, like we have completely sequenced our human genome. It's good, like, okay, we sequenced our human genome. That was a big hype which came. Okay, the company went and patented all the genes, everything, then it became public. Okay, now we know our genome. But like, okay, with just knowing the genome sequence, can we discover a drug molecule? No, because it's what you have is only a one-dimensional, right? But anything you need a three-dimensional. To visualize anything, you need a three-dimensional part of it. So if you want a three-dimensional, what is the science there? It's the protein structure, right? And if you see, after the human genome sequencing was released, look into the amount of development in the amount of crystal structures coming up. Now, what we are talking in the last 2 years is cryo-EM. Like this is saying like, okay, it can give you like a microscopic level of the protein structure, which is again going to give us more insight into the protein, in understanding the protein structure. Because if you want to get into drug discovery, as I was insisting right from beginning, you need to know the 3D structure of your protein in and out. You need to know the thermodynamics, what is happening in the biology, in the protein structure, because 70% of our body is water, and every water molecule, because our body is made up of different type of amino acids. If a water molecule is located in a hydrophilic amino acid near to an hydrophilic, the affinity between the water and the protein would be very high. If the water molecule is located between a hydrophobic residue and the water molecule, then there will be repulsion. The affinity between the water and the protein is difficult. Now, when we are designing a molecule, this, even though this is the entropy and enthalpy is a minor term, but that plays a very major role, because when we look into the designing on a minute level, understanding the protein structure, we look into each and every water molecule. What does it contribute? Which water molecule I can replace? Which I should not touch? Okay, if I want to calculate all these water thermodynamics happening in a binding pocket, I must and should know, have a good crystal structure. That is the first starting step for a rational drug design. Everybody wants to approach any problem today rationally, right? So cryo-EM is another technology. Today, we are all talking about AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and everything. Today, like there is another from Google, like DeepMind, okay, in the protein structure prediction. So these are some of the things which came in the articles in Nature 2021. Yet they say like highly accurate protein structure prediction with AlphaFold. AlphaFold using AI for scientific discovery. AlphaFold, a solution to a 50-year-old grand challenge in biology. What is a grand challenge? Because if you want to do a crystallization of a protein, so you have to isolate the protein, like, okay, you have to crystallize it. Many times it takes months, sometimes it takes few weeks. So it's a big challenge. And again, crystallization, X-ray crystallography, all those things. Now here is a technology which is coming in, and it says, I can give you a structure over a weekend, right? Don't spend months and years, okay? So what does this opportunity opens up? Because today in drug discovery, we know like we are able to do a drug discovery if we have a crystal structure. And there are so many targets, like for example, so many CNS targets, we don't have the crystal structure. But we have the sequence of that particular gene or protein or whatever. Now here is a technology which comes and tells, okay, I can give you a structure, not so accurately, but at least like, okay, something reliable structure. So a man walking in a completely a dark pitch road, okay, he don't know like, okay, where there is a stone, where there is a snake coming in or something creepy coming in. If I give him a powerful touch, at least it will help him to see, okay, there is a pit, I should not fall. There is a snake coming in or whatever, I should be careful, right? So this is a technology, at least today it is like a torch for a person who is involved in the drug discovery. So looks like there are so many comments coming in, it will change everything. DeepMind's AI makes gigantic leap in solving the protein structures. So this is one of the thing, like, okay, I was just reading this, putting the power of AlphaFold in the world's hand. This will be one of the most important data sets since mapping of the human genome. It is changing it. And if you look into the AlphaFold on the structure prediction, on the Cas competitions in all these years, if you see like comparing to all the technologies, whatever was there in the last 10 years, they are able to predict pretty accurately and advancing the technology. And they are also creating a database. AlphaFold opens new research origins, and it is inspiring to see powerful cutting-edge technology, AI enabling work on disease which are concentrated almost exclusively improvised populations. What took us months and years to do, AlphaFold was able to do it in a weekend. So this is the way the world is changing, right? But at the same time, I'm also afraid of like, okay, how the AI is going to change. So because like everything is coming easy, because today I sit at home, my grocery comes to home, but I don't know like whether you are getting the ads in Delhi. Today in Bangalore, every company now says, I will deliver the grocery to your house within 15 minutes, right? In one way, it is making us lazy. Probably like our brain will like look into it. Like, I don't know like whether this video is seen. Look into it. Like, I'm just making you like enthused to break the monotony. The guy comes in, but he's losing his intelligence. Okay, he can just go out like after opening the door, but he has lost his intelligence and going back, right? So I'm more afraid like whether thinking AI is also going to make our brain also going to do like this. Okay, but anyway, like what I'm telling you is that the way the technology is changing is even the intelligence is going to become artificial, right? So so the way like in the last 2 decades, after the internet coming in, after the hardware technology, the software technology, and today like data is more valuable, right? I told like Facebook is valued billions of dollars, WhatsApp is valued billions of dollars, Microsoft, which is developing the software and was selling for billions of dollars, telling like I'll give you your the operating system free. But at the back end, what they are doing, they are all stealing your data, right? The data is becoming much more valuable today than even a company which is producing oil, right? If you look into it 10 years back, like Exxon Mobil or what or Shell, they were the most valuable companies. But today, like if you see like companies who are all into AI, machine learning, data processing, everything, they are becoming more thing. So that's the way like things are changing. And as I told you, now the enormous amount of crystal structures coming in, there are enormous amount of chemical data coming in. There are enormous amount of biological data coming in if you look into the biological sciences, right? So what is the advantage? Now, with the crystal structures coming in, so if you look into the drug discovery per se, you cannot do the drug discovery by looking into only one aspect, right? So if you want to predict the binding affinity of a molecule, okay, you need to go and approach the physics-based methods where you identify, do your simulation, where you do a free energy perturbation or a molecular dynamics or a thermodynamic simulations or a docking. These are all physics-based methods which helps you to find out, to narrow down or identify the potential lead molecules, using these physical-chemical physics-based methods. Second, like, okay, these methods will help you to identify, okay, today, like, this was not possible. Probably if I tell today, even like 5 years back, if I say like, okay, I screen million compounds, some people will look into it. How is it possible? But today we screen 200 billion molecules. I'm not telling million, billion molecules within few weeks. That's the way the technology has gone. Like because of the cloud computing, we are able to screen billions of molecules and identify what is the lead molecule, and which took 6 months for a free energy perturbation calculation to predict the binding affinity between a molecule and its protein structure. Or even if you want to do a modification to a simple chlorine to bromine modification, and you want to predict like, okay, what is going to be the binding affinity, which took 6 months, is possible to do in 4 hours. So now look into the way the simulation is taking place. Today, simulation is there in every field, right? You are not going and like, okay, even if you want to simply construct a house, you first like, okay, bring it into your mind what you want, then you go to an architect or you go to a 3D designer, you ask him like, okay, can you design me how my house is going to look at? So you say like, okay, I look into it, like, okay, I like it, okay, I don't like the structure, can you bring something, okay, which will satisfy me what are looking at my requirement. Even a pilot who is going to learn, like, okay, he is going to go and look into, sit in the simulator, right? Today, everything is first simulation, right? Now, today, with the amount of crystal structures coming in from like X-ray crystallography, NMR, cryo-EM, or even with the DeepMind or whatever, so we are getting more crystal structure for a rational drug design. On the other hand, the same QSAR, like, or like the structure activity relationships, it is a known science. Those days, the number of molecules what we had with the QSAR, you were doing like with some 20 or 100 molecules. But with 20 or 100 molecules, the amount of data, the amount of information what you have is minuscule, right? But now, with amount of chemical data coming in, today you have millions of molecules, millions of chemical data, and like, okay, when you have these data, so when there are millions amount of data is available, now, when you are going to predict for something new, okay, so for example, I want to predict like, okay, what is the ADME property of this molecule, whether this molecule can cross the blood-brain barrier or whether it is going to have a toxicity. When I have collected the data from millions of molecules, and when I create a model based upon these artificial intelligence or deep learning or whatever, when I do that simulation, that helps in the other part of the drug discovery, because we cannot simulate the ADME toxicity and the hERG binding and all these things using the physics-based method as of now. For hERG, like again, like, okay, we have a crystal structure, not a crystal structure, a homology model structure, but for many other physicochemical properties, we still cannot go and predict based upon the rational approach or based upon the physics-based approach. We have to look into the AI and machine learning. And like for many biological activities, what would be the IC50 or whatever, like if you want to predict for a new chemical entity or for a new changes, these AI machine learning is coming in. Now you have big amount of data, you have big amount of crystal structures, everything in coming in. At the same time, there is an amalgamation of computing power. Today we have supercomputers, today we have cloud computing, and now tomorrow we are talking about quantum computing, which can calculate millions and trillions of calculations within few seconds. So don't you think you are in a generation where it is coming as an amalgamation of fantastic technologies and in a growth which is booming up? And how far your syllabuses are taking care of all these things, how far you're learning all these things, how far like all the students here or the teachers here, you're learning what is happening in the world, and how far like this information is passed on to the next generation. Believe me, like, I love this country, like, but our education system is still like mug up, write, get a job and do a service job. With this, we are not going to develop as a country unless we innovate, unless we bring in new technology, unless we think differently. As a country, as an individual also cannot come up. And if somebody has to come up, they have to be advanced in learning up whatever is the new things, implement those things. If you, as a teacher, as a researcher, as a PhD student, if you're doing a project, look into it. What is the new technology coming up? How can I bring a rational approach? Okay. So look into the way the current disruptive technologies. Ola, Uber, do they own any car? They don't own anything. What they have, they just have an app. Today, I just read in the newspaper, Ola is raising about like $2 billion. Okay. And WhatsApp, no server, 40 billion. Apple don't even own a factory, more than 800 billion valuation. You look into Alibaba, Amazon, eBay, or Flipkart, or whatever. Do they own even a single store? Nothing. The technology. Same way, what I feel, the molecular simulations, I'm not telling it is going to completely replace the chemistry or biology, everything. They cannot be replaced because they are the technologies which is still going to give you a proof of concept. But instead of synthesizing millions of compounds, we are heading towards a technology which is going to help you to synthesize even with just few hundred molecules or few molecules. Because if you're doing a PhD program, if you're doing a PhD in chemistry, you might be synthesizing at least 100 molecules. Imagine just with this 100 molecules, you're able to discover a molecule. That is the way like what we are looking into it. So as Dr. Oja told, learn, unlearn, and nothing is permanent, right? So for example, this is one thing like Chotuli bridge, which in the river. So every year the bridge, it washes, it seems. Now, like they constructed they called a Japanese engineer, he constructed a fantastic, very strong bridge. Again, there was a big flood, it came and it washed everything, and the river itself changed its direction. So that's the way the technology today's life is. Whatever you are learning today, tomorrow it may not be completely useful. Like, are we using any of, are you using like to take a photography using the film? No way. Are you using any of the whatever the things like CD disk or even floppy disk or anything? Completely changed. Today you're all digital. Tomorrow we don't know like how it is. Everything it will be stored. Like the moment you take every photo, it gets uploaded to the cloud. the way things are changing is all changing a lot. So as Schrodinger, we develop world-class molecular modeling software for the drug design, biologics design, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and material science. Material science is another area which is developing much faster, because today, like, okay, you look into Boeing, they look into it, how can I design my aircraft which is very lighter, so that like the fuel consumption is less. Samsung collaborates with us. Okay, how can I design a phone which is light in material and which is also flexible? Everything. Okay, so every company, for example, Tata Steel, like every company, like, okay, I can't disclose what the project is. Everybody is looking into it, like even on the material science, they are coming into the simulations first to identify which material is lightweighter or which material is thermostable. Okay, so that's the way the world, which is flexible and which will again, like, okay, give a very blue fluorescence or whatever. So to simulate, to design everything, the thing is coming is the molecular modeling. So we are a 30-year-old company, so which is very well validated again across hundreds of targets in real world drug discovery projects. We do collaborations today with big biopharma companies worldwide. We signed a deal with BMS for $2 billion, Nimbus, which developed a molecule for $1.2 billion, Sanofi, Takeda, Jaya Labs. Now today, like what we are seeing is, what I'm seeing in India, what I see in abroad, every pharma company is investing millions and billions into the computational drug design. If I see 10 years back, that wake up scenario was not there. Today, because there is a proof, I'm just showing you, so I'm going to show you like few slides on our success stories. There is a change happening. So in fact, like these are all like just the collaborations which happened just 4 or 5 years back. Within the 4 or 5 years, we already have 5 FDA approved oncology drugs, several clinical stage assets, and many more dozens of programs moving much faster in the drug discovery and development. And we do our own drug discovery research on many targets. So we as a company are committed to do the speed up the drug discovery on the new medicines, because whatever we are developing, we know it works and we are using on our projects. This is one of the target we worked, like which, for example, Pfizer took 27 years, and we designed a molecule in just 6 months and sold within 9 months to Gilead. So if you look into the people who are backing up the company, it's Bill Gates, you all know. David Shah, he is a scientific advisor. He is one of the founder for our company, who thought like 30 years back, look into the foresight what this man had. 30 years back, he thought like the future is going to be computational simulations. I was reading an article like about like 50 years back, when the telephone was just newly introduced, somebody predicted like, okay, the future telephone is not going to be wired. It is going to be wireless. People can carry wherever they want. It can even translate, and it can even guide you. I don't know with what intention, what foresight he predicted, right? I can't predict like, okay, what is going to happen in next 50 years or 30 years. We can't, nobody has that. But some of them like, okay, has that prediction. So D. Shah is something like, okay, who predicted and who pulled in all the top scientists in the world to develop this company. Google Ventures is part of it, SoftBank, and many more. So today, the way like all these people, big guys coming and investing means, then there is something like they predict like, okay, this technology is changing. So we have a lot of collaborations. Even in India, we have a collaboration with Sun Pharma. And so everything happens twice. First, like if you want to go somewhere, it comes into your mind. But in drug discovery, when multiple factors are involved, it's not like, okay, just in mind, you can think everything. The only thing is you have to do simulation. Okay, how my molecule is binding? How is its ADME property? How is its toxicity? How is its blood-brain barrier, or many other parameters? So today, the way like how it is doing is like, okay, when you have to identify molecule based upon multiple parameters, you first identify the molecule which binds perfectly. Use the physics-based method. Then come to the artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these methods. Okay, I have a model trained for this target based upon so many millions of molecules. Okay, let me test like these molecules, whatever I have identified, what is their parameters? Are they satisfying the ADME? Are they satisfying the toxicity? Are they satisfying the hERG binding affinity? So every aspect of it you simulate, which is coming, cluster the molecules, which is really good. predict like, okay, what is the binding affinity of the molecule? Now you want to change some of the thing, change it, do a free energy perturbation. Within 4 hours, you know what is the molecule's fate. Then go for your synthesis. So today, like, okay, the way like how we take is, this is something like, first we screen based upon ADME, then like, okay, we screen the molecules, then predict like only few molecules based upon the docking, and synthesize only 40. This is only based upon the docking technology I'm talking. I'm going to come about like the other technologies. From here, again, with the 40, like we identified few molecules, expanded to using a virtual combinatorial to 60,000 and selected only 270 molecules. We identified the molecule which are having very good potency from 8,000 nanomolar to 10 nanomolar within about 6 to 9 months, using not only the in silico with all the biological activity. This is with ACC, again, like millions of molecules. This I'm talking, this is a study on 2013. Okay, now I'll come to about like what is happening now. So with a technology like a docking, where a simple technology like docking, where we screen millions of compounds, brought down to just few hundred compounds for the thing. Now, if you have identified a molecule, now you want to design something still better. As I told you, 70% of your body is made up of water. You should understand your thermodynamics, what is happening in the body. So understanding the water thermodynamics plays a very, very crucial role. The one in the red are all thermodynamically weaker, the green are thermodynamically stronger. So it understands, if it is strong, I should not design a molecule there. I should not keep a functional group there. That's a way like the technology today computational information gives you. Does a chemist who is involved in designing a molecule, does he know all this information? Absolutely no. Chemist knows only to synthesize a molecule. Now, whatever we are simulating is all in the computers, right? But now, if you want to do that in the computer, so whatever is happening in the biology, if it has to be simulated in the body, in the computer, then whatever you're assigning as a charges, everything has to be very accurate, right? That's where the force fields comes, which assigns the molecules properties, everything perfectly. So that helps us to reduce the error rate. That's the technological development we have brought in. Now the free energy perturbation. What does the free energy perturbation does is, now if I want to change any molecule, instead of a chlorine, if I'm changing to a bromine, or instead of methyl, I'm changing to a ethyl, I want to predict like, okay, what is its binding affinity is going to increase or decrease. That can be today predicted within just about 4 hours. So now with all these technologies, just I'm going to show you some case studies. We just identified one molecule, which was 2 micromolar, using the water map, just 4 molecules, using free energy perturbation, just 10 molecules were synthesized. With just 14 compounds, a molecule was identified for a potential target. Can you imagine this 10 years back, 20 years back, if I have told the computational simulation is going to help you to design molecules with just a dozen molecules. And this is a case study by AstraZeneca, where look into it for different targets, how many molecules they have synthesized. Just 38, 82, 26, 48, even just 6, 10. And what is the error? RMSD error. It's in one of the 2 targets, only 1.2. Other things is all like 0.6, 0.9. So if a computational simulation can give you a prediction within about 0.5 or 6 kilocalorie per mole, which is also happening, like if you go and do a simulation in your own ITC machine, the error rate is going to be 0.5 or 6. Today, if the simulation is going to give you like at the same accuracy, why can't you rely on these technologies? This is with Bayer. For 3 different targets, only 60 ligands were synthesized within 1 kilocalorie. Results they predicted within overnight. This is by Johnson & Johnson. This is the experimental delta G. This is the predicted delta G. You can see like, what is the difference? Just minus 0.7, minus 7.8, 7.1, 7.6, 9 minus 9.3, 9.8, 11.6, 11.7. This is the way the technological changes is happening. This is from Galapagos. How many molecules like they synthesize? 16, 15. Here 100 compounds calculated, 10 recommended, only 3 synthesized. So the way like what is happening with today, with the rational drug design, with knowing the structure, with knowing the AI machine learning, you can take even millions of compounds, narrow down, enumerate, predict based upon the AI machine learning, everything, do a docking, do a free energy perturbation, predict based upon the water thermodynamics, identify the few molecules, and then go for your synthesis. Don't you think like this is a technology which is making up your billions of dollars spending in to just a few millions, and which takes 10 years to discover and identify a lead molecule is reduced to just few months. And when a technology like this is in front of you, why can't you learn, implement in your projects or whatever? It's good like, okay, Goenka University has arranged this. It's good like, okay, you've taken a step to come and learn on these technologies. It's not just learning. You should try to implement like, okay, where can I implement in your project? That's a way. So the number of molecules to be synthesized is reduced to just few hundred. Reduction in time to discover an IND molecule. Lead optimization is now quick and easy. Selectivity is possible because you know the crystal structure of everything. Solubility, everything is taken. Now we are in an era where we are changing from chemistry, from combinatorial chemistry to computational drug design, everything. So virtual screening, everything. So computational drug design definitely reduces the time, cost, and pain in the drug discovery. You name any pharma company in India, they use only the Schrödinger software for their drug discovery research. So to empower you, it is one of the aspect like, okay, I know like, okay, this is a technology which has not taken shape and it has not taken any shape in India, which is painful to me. I many times I see, because since I'm a VP for global level, I see the discovery happening in Europe, in US, everything. And because they're all kind of like entered into this field in the earlier stage, but we are still like, okay, looking into all the same chemistry, same biology, same these things, but we are not developed. But it is my aim like, okay, at least I want to bring in few center of excellences in the drug discovery, select few universities or institutes, help them in the molecular modeling, chemistry, biology, and everything. This is my dream, to establish some center of excellences. So I thought like, okay, we'll be selecting 10 universities, introduce the molecular simulations in the master's, PhD. We will be completely training, supporting. We want to make the university as a pioneer in the area of molecular simulations. We will be providing all the software tools to these universities, which we are establishing as a center of excellence on life sciences, biology, material science, artificial intelligence, everything. All the tools you will be getting in. You'll receive the complete support from the Schrödinger. Every 3 months, Schrödinger scientists will visit, and twice a year workshop, 1 week workshop. We'll be conducting theory classes for about 60 classes, 20 practical classes, everything. Even people like, since we are involved in the drug discovery, even you can interact with those people also. And we also help like, okay, if you have identified a molecule, if you don't have the synthesis, ADME or toxicity labs, we help to collaborate with the CROs. That's a kind of an aim I'm trying to bring in. And this is a time like, okay, you will get 100 tokens of the license, all the modules, kind of 100 user licenses, the water map, free energy perturbation. These are the game changers we want to establish with some of the universities. So the focus here is like, I want to bring in beyond publication, to bring in our own drug discovery kind of a thing. That is my aim, to establish something. But we also want a commitment from you, like there should be one dedicated modeler to take care of the local support, everything. Biologist, chemistry expert, create a committee, because I don't want to give a center of excellence. I want to see how it progresses, okay, and look into the progress. That's the way we are looking into it. So I'm throwing out an opportunity to most of you. Probably there are VCs register, or even like your faculties available to you, because in today getting resources are difficult. Like, okay, there are like people available, like, okay, there are resources available, but if you want to see the other side of it, if you want to discover the other way of it, if you want to come up, you have to utilize the resources, whatever it is coming in. Ultimately, like, okay, when it comes to drug discovery, one should be smart. How quickly you can reach your target is important. You want to keep around beating around the bush like Lord Muruga and like, okay, doing the serendipity drug discovery or whatever, or think clever, use the in silico tools, whatever, reach your golden mango. Thank you. Thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity. Took my time. That is my regular kind of a habit or whatever. So thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity.